More money, more problems. More changes, more problems in the future. Alright, let's go through this. So we got the standard changes. Our top priority this patch was to make the meta feel more stable and more diverse. For that reason, we focused primarily on making a moderate number of high confidence changes this patch. We expect that there will be a room for adjustment after this patch settles in, but we'd like to take the opportunity to see where the changes land before making further changes. Probably the best thing to do is just to take things down a peg, which is why I agree with this first nerf. Instead of making Guff like more mana and have a worse ability or set his ability to 15, they are just changing Guff's hero power to an empty mana crystal. I think this change is absolutely fine because, like they'll say in this comment, Ramp Druid is one of the most powerful, most influential decks in the game this patch. Guff was a clear power outlier for the deck, so a change to Guff was the highest confidence change that we could make. We could still expect to see Guff as a playable card with an important role in these strategies, but we hope that these changes will make it feel like there's more of a cost to ramping more than there was previously. Guff, in the past, however long it's been out, has literally always been used as the ramp to 20 as quickly as possible. There is no argument. You are always going to do this strategy. Why wouldn't you do this strategy? You're pretty much paying 1 less mana, and you're already, like, at 8 mana by turn 5 anyway. So it's not like capping yourself at 7 mana that turn is really doing you any bad, when next turn you'll be at 9 mana, next turn you'll be at 11 mana, next turn you'll be at 13 mana, etc., etc. So now ramping will actually cost 2 mana, the way that it should. So that way, like, if you want to have, like, a bigger next turn, you have to be able to afford it after being able to ramp up the entire game. Do I think Ramp Druid is powerful still? Of course it is. It's Ramp Druid. It does big things very quickly, and there are some decks that can't deal with big strategies. However, this is going to prevent it from being hopefully dominant on the meta. And I think that this is a very good way of changing Guff, because changing the cap to 15 feels awkward. I don't know if there's any other way to describe it. It just feels awkward. And if he's still a problem, we can always change it to that next. But if this change is effective enough, we don't have to risk completely killing the card, making it either A, 6 or 7 mana, or B, making it capped at 15. So I think I agree with these changes, absolutely. Battlecry is, oh wait, is the Battlecry also empty mana? Oh, dude, wait, that's actually huge. I didn't catch that. Hold on a minute. Let me actually zoom in. Let me actually zoom in and make this easier, so that way, you know, I can get through this without a problem. I'm also gonna move my camera. Okay, here we go. We'll just move myself over here for the time being because it's just easier to read this. All right, the next thing. Edwin, what is there to say? This was happening. This was 100% happening. Guff deserved it. Yeah, Guff got the good treatment, though. He's still a playable card, but this is also still a playable card. And if anybody thinks that this change is bad, they need to reevaluate how badly Rogue destroyed this meta. I saw some people being like, Rogue's win rate is not that good globally, but that's not what you have to focus on, dude. You have to focus on how many uninteractive games this deck had, and it had so many uninteractive games, and Edwin was a sole reason for it. So let's see what the devs have to say about it. There's been a lot of attention on Edwin ever since he was buffed in the last patch, and rightfully so. Since his buff, he has been one of the most highly played cards and winningest cards in the game. Is that even a fucking word? Hold on, okay, this is actually bothering me. Is this a real word? This is a real word? Having achieved the most success in competition. Okay, alright, I guess I'm just a dum-dum. The winningest cards in the game, which made him an obvious candidate for high confidence adjustment to Rogue. When we made the initial buff, Rogue looked like it needed some help, but now these lists have been more refined. We think Rogue will remain a player in the meta, even with Edwin back to 4. Pretty much. Pretty much, man. I mean, I think we figured out why the patch notes take forever is because they look at dictionaries, apparently, and just try to fit in these weird words that I swear I've never heard in my entirety of being on this planet for 26 years. But sure. This is why the patch notes take forever. Okay, so the Dawngrasp hero power. I'm kind of shocked that they didn't put the actual hero card next to it, because they changed Guff, but they didn't. I mean, they also changed the text on Guff. They didn't change the text on Magister. But honorable kill, instead of gain 2 damage, is now gain 1 damage. I feel like there's a world where this is actually kind of a buff, because there might be a way for Dawngrasp to specifically like set up like a 2, 3, 4, 5 clear kind of thing. I don't know how easy that's going to be to set up, but I feel like there's a world where that happens. But this also prevents the hero power from just ramping up to like 8 damage by like turn 8, which is something that I've done before. Dawngrass, Reckless Defile, Pog. That'd be really funny. I don't know, man. It would actually be really funny if it was like launch your hero power at something. If it kills something targeted, or like launch it again. Literally like Defile, but with hero power. It would only work with like Mage. I don't know. I kind of like this change. This is like the change that Mage needed, to where Dawngrasp is still 7 mana. It's still a playable card. It still works with like the spell schools in case, you know, that becomes relevant. And then the deck that I was just playing, that was kind of relevant, being able to get spell school value. So changing it to 8 mana would probably have slowed down Mage to the point where these other nerfs maybe would have been too much. I don't know. I still kind of like the idea of Dawngrasp being at 8 mana. But it's either you make this change or you make the 8 mana change, and this change might be better. So I think I might agree with this more than my initial suggestion. Okay, so this is the other Mage nerf that makes sense. Nightcloak Sanctum going to 2 durability. The dev comment, along with Druid and Rogue, Mage has been one of the most dominant classes since the patch. Nightcloak Sanctum has been a clear outlier in the mid stages of the game, and scaling threat of Magister's hero power has been dominant in the end game. These 2 standout cards were obviously targets for tuning down the deck's power level, and should also make the class less frustrating to play against in the mid and late game. Honestly, dude, like, the aggro deck that I'm playing has things like Solid Alibi and this card to just, like, really milk how often your opponent can't do anything against you, as you're just building up this ridiculous hero power. So I feel like these 2 nerfs are definitely warranted. Everybody was predicting this, though, so I feel like this is the least surprising nerf. But hello from left field, Quest Hunter getting nerfed. I would love to see their explanation for this, but this has to be for the lower ranks, or for like the casual experience, because this deck was not playable. Hunter has not been playable at top legend, but I wonder if this is also for wild as well. So let's see what the comment is. Quest Hunter is a frustrating deck to play against. They finally admitted it. They finally admitted it. I am literally going to use this every single time somebody tries to defend Quest Hunter. The devs literally said that this is a frustrating deck to play against. It's not good in Wild either. It had moments. I still hate queuing into the deck in Wild. Quest Hunter is a frustrating deck to play against and was poised to be a powerful meta contender after the changes to the other classes. This change is both to address the deck's current state and the anticipated relative power after the patch. Good. Make sure, if you're ever gonna have Quest Hunter, you need to make sure it's not top tier. I'm sorry, but like this, it's a frustrating deck. I don't care how bad the deck is, or how like, I really don't care how many bad matchups or how many good matchups this thing has. It's frustrating to play against. It is literally just Hero Power Simulator, and we've learned from Genin Baku that Hero Power Simulator is not the way to do it. At least with Raza Priest, you had pieces to put together. This deck doesn't have pieces. It just plays its normal strategy and gives you an amazing pop-off turn. I've complained about Quest Hunter enough on this stream, so I'm not gonna ramp on this anymore. But this is more of a feels-good change rather than like a power outlier change, even though they do also anticipate this deck to be good if they didn't change it. Kael'thas, though, going to 8 mana. I think they took the Brian Kibler suggestion, because I believe he suggested making this card 8 mana. So now if we want to do anything with Bran, we at least need a coin or some other form of mana discount. Do I think this card still sees play? 100%. And it's only in decks like, I want to say like Relic Demon Hunter, because half the time you're like discounting a bunch of cards anyway, so you don't care too much about this card going to 8. So at least my video about Relic Demon Hunter can still be kind of relevant, maybe. I don't know. But let's see what the devs have to say about this. Kael'thas, Brandon, and Athreus have appeared together as a package in a variety of decks. To address this specific interaction between these cards, we felt the best solution was to add 2 more mana to the Kael'thas Brand combo so that it can't be played with 10 mana. Still doesn't stop Druid, though. We preferred to change Kael'thas over Brand because Kael'thas is being used primarily for things like this combo, while Brand has other interesting uses, other interesting use cases, too. Yeah, I kind of agree with this. I think that if you're going to change any of the cards, if you're going to change Denathrius, if you're going to change Bran, or if you're going to change Kael'thas, Kael'thas has to be the card you change. Although I am very still confused why they just don't change it to cost 1. Like, one change I could imagine was if you made this card 7 mana. You make this card 7 mana and cost 1 instead. Every third minion you play costs 1. So that way you still can't do like the Bran Kael'thas like combo with your Denathrius because you'll be at 10 mana. But it also still makes Kael'thas like a card that you can work with like Nagalings. Because like now you strictly need like a 1-drop, or like you only can make this work with a 1 or 2-drop. And exactly, you can't take Bran out of the equation. Bran is too fun of a card. He works in too many decks, and it isn't like the reason why those decks are broken. Devs don't want to admit that 0-cost cards are problematic. I mean, the thing that made Kael'thas balanced is the fact that you can't get more than like 2 value procs out of him ever. The old Kael'thas, you were able to play like so many 0-mana cards that it was so stupid because, you know, Druid card draw, Druid deal damage. Oh my god, just you killed them when you played Kael'thas. At least with like this version, or like with the old version, you were able to do like a mega combo with like Gigafin and Sire Denathrius in like the same turn. I think that was fine. But what they're saying is that because Druid is so oppressive with Sire Denathrius, the other decks can't feel as oppressive as Druid does at times. And this combo was so consistent to the point where it saw play in multiple different classes. Demon Hunter, Shaman, it saw play in Warlock. Sire Denathrius sometimes saw play in Mage, but I think it kind of fell off, and Kael'thas definitely fell off with it. But the point is, Kael'thas Brand does limit design space. Yes, that's exactly where I was leading up to, Joshua. It limits design space, and if you make this card 7 mana, cost 1, it's pretty much the same card. It just doesn't have like this insane scaling capability, and I'm guessing like they still want mana sheet to be rewarded, like case in point, Relic Demon Hunter. And if you make this card 4 mana, then like it literally doesn't change. The other reason why I like the idea of changing it to every cost 1, or like every third minion costs 1, is so that way if you do reduce the cost of Kael'thas, it still doesn't like, you know, cheat the game completely. It still has a way of being able to fail because you don't have enough mana kind of thing. But I guess the devs are saying that they want this card to have that potential high roll. But all I know is I am looking forward to when we summon this card randomly from like a 7 into 8 evolve, and then suddenly we pop off. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but some deck is gonna be able to do that. Like in the old days with like a Cenarian Ward. Oh wait, in Wild you can hit this off a Cenarian Ward. That's really funny. I called this, by the way. I called this nerf and people called me a madman. But this nerf just makes sense, dude. This card should have started out the gate at 4 mana. And if you don't believe me, let's see what the devs have to say. Okay. Smothering Starfish was living up to its name a bit too much. Yeah, I was smothering the meta, that's why. And it was also quite a starfish. That was a bad joke, I'm sorry. Go ahead and boo me, it's okay. The goal for this card was to be a strong tech card, but the cost was to include it in your deck was low enough to where it's acting more like a staple more than a tech card. While responding to specific meta forces, Starfish was also unintentionally snuffing out a variety of underrepresented decks. This nerf is going to be huge for Warrior and Paladin specifically. I don't want to say that the presence of Smothering Starfish is the reason why Paladin and Warrior were not seeing play, because they were already missing a lot and they just didn't have like the insane power turns that the other classes had. But god damn it, this didn't help. This didn't help when you literally had your 1-2-3 curve, and then on turn 3, your opponent just literally plays Starfish, and you're stuck with like 1 attack minions. Then they gain a bunch of armor, freeze your shit, and you can't do anything about it. And also, those same decks can't play this card. They can't play this card because it screws over their archetype. So like, this nerf makes sense. And when you compare it to literally Ironbeak Owl, that used to be a 3 mana silence 1 card. 3 mana silence everything? Are you freaking kidding me? I don't know if this like affects any other game mode, but at least in standard, dude, like this is huge. This is very much warranted. And people that were like, oh man, now this card is dead. Like, no, it's not. It's just not gonna be like the obvious choice to put in your deck now. Kind of like what they're saying. it was a staple more than a tech card. And I 100% agree with this statement. We feel like this adjustment will still allow Starfish to be played as a powerful tech option, but would be less generically ubiquitous. I agree with this statement too. Yeah, dude, Spellbreaker got power creeped. How dare they? How dare they power creep not only Ironbeak Owl, but now they're power creeping Spellbreaker. Is not that played in Wild unless your deck doesn't win against Big Priest. We've got 2 buffs, by the way. School Teacher is going to a 4/4. I don't know why they keep changing this card. This is always like a card that is always like the first change was like, okay, sure. And this is exactly how I feel about the same change. It's like, okay, sure. What is this for? Naga Priest? What is this for? Freaking Paladin? Paladin has larger HP now? We initially changed when we initially changed School Teacher, it was the most played card in the game. We're partially reverting the balance change in order to make this card feel a bit better to include in decks, while still acknowledging that the power level at launch was a bit higher than we would have liked it to be. Like, I'm fine with this buff, but I'm wondering like what they thought this would specifically be for. Cause like, yeah, Naga Priest, cool. It has more HP. It's now a 5/6 with Serpent Wig. Maybe Paladin can do something with this card too. Maybe Warrior. Hold on a minute. Warrior kind of cares about the extra 1 HP. That could make a big deal. This could see play in Warrior decks now. I mean, I know it's just better in general, but I'm thinking about what specifically cares about this buff. And I think Warrior is the big one that cares. Okay, and then Alliance Bannerman, kind of like for the same thing. Like, he goes from 1 HP to 2 HP. When we buff cards in underperforming classes, we rarely do so with the goal of immediately shooting the class to a 50+ win rate. Dude, say this for the people in the back, please. Please say this. I'm going to say the statement again. When we buff cards in underperforming classes, we rarely do it with the goal of immediately shooting the class to a 50+ win rate. Where are they going with this? Let's figure out, because this is an important set that I'm forgetting the term in English. Thesis statement. There we go. This is a very good thesis statement. Our goal is to make the game more fun, something which we can accomplish by bringing the class up to a level where players feel like it is something worth exploring. With the focus of high confidence changes in this patch, the change we are most confident we can give Paladin was something we've seen before, a reversion to a previous balance change. Yeah, because this card was like nerfed for no reason. And also, like, another reason to buff classes is to help them stack better in future updates. Because if they're underperforming now, they're probably underperforming in future expansions and future testing. So being able to make these, like, changes, even though they're small and some people would say that they're insignificant, this does make a good, like, this does make a good amount of sense. Because, like, especially with Paladin being able to buff minions, like, 1 HP is, like, everything. Is it gonna save Paladin? We won't know until we see how, like, the Guff and Mage changes really change the meta. And now that Rogue is somewhat weaker, like, it's still good, but it's just a little bit weaker. Like, Rogue can still perform. So I wonder if this is gonna be a Rogue metagame where people are gonna counter Rogue, which then begs the question, can Warrior and Paladin finally see play? If you had a gun to my head and I had to give my take, I feel like Demon Hunter is going to be a good class now. Let's actually look at the classes real quick. Demon Hunter is probably going to be really good. Druid is going to go down. Hunter is probably going to be like exactly as it is. It dominates in the lower ladder. But in top legend, it's just not going to see play unless it becomes the strategy to maybe beat the aggro decks that emerge. Mage feels like it's finally going to be fair instead of top tier. Paladin, I'm going to come back to that one. Priest feels like it probably isn't going to change all too much. With Rogue being dominant, this is going to be the obvious class to destroy Priest. But if this meta becomes more aggressive, Quest Priest can still do pretty well, and Miracle Priest is still a deck that people aren't playing. Same thing with Naga Priest. Rogue is probably going to be king. I think the change to Edwin really doesn't change how good this deck is. However, its main weaknesses, like Mage, for example, and dominant Druid strategies are now going down. Like, not saying that, like obviously Rogue was favored into Druid, but Druid could do some very scammy things that just stop the Rogue from winning. So now that just doesn't happen anymore. So this just becomes even more dominant if these decks are still seeing play. Shaman and Warlock are kind of interesting because they should fill in the gaps that that Druid and Mage were providing. Aggro Druid might pop off. Oh, dude, you're right. Aggro Druid's just gonna be the nuts. And then Warrior. I think Warrior's probably gonna be a little good now. It's not gonna be nuts, but it's still gonna be good. If I have to rank the HS replay classes, I'm gonna argue. I want to say that Hunter is still gonna be at top because it's just gonna be the go-to strategy in lower ranks. So it's probably gonna be something along the lines of like Hunter. I want to say Hunter, Rogue, Priest, Mage, Demon Hunter, Druid, Shaman, Warlock, Warrior, Paladin. I feel like that's gonna be the order. Cause like these changes to Paladin and Warrior are good. Like it's really good. This is gonna be able to give these decks some breathing space. But Rogue is still the nuts. Warrior and Paladin can't deal with that. Priest still kind of, you know, dominates those strategies too. And I don't know how good Hunter is into them. But if these are going to be the 3 major decks, like if these are going to be the 3 top decks, which I believe they probably will be, then... Oh yeah, wait a minute. XL Curse Warlock. That is actually a deck I am not considering. I was 100% just thinking Imp Lock. But I don't know. I feel like these are going to be the top 3 classes. But there you have it. Those are the balance changes, and those are my opinions on those said balance changes. I really do believe that the only card that I don't agree with in terms of its change is Kael'thas. Kael'thas probably would have been better, in my opinion, as a 7 mana. This the third card costs 1, as you heard me say several times, due to the fact that I think that it just deals better with the mana reduction possibilities that can come out of Kael'thas, to where it doesn't just scam games like in Demon Hunter, for example. I think that they want to keep that as is, but Kael'thas going to 8 mana, still reducing the third minion to 0, can still be nutty if you do happen to have more than 10 mana in Druids and be able to discount things with the Demon Hunter, or maybe even with Shaman with like Farsight. I doubt that's going to see any play, but Managed Sheet is Managed Sheet, and we always will see these kind of strategies make their way to the top because that's just what has historically been good in Hearthstone. But let me know what you guys think about these changes. I will be active in the comments talking about what I think is going to be good. As you guys heard me say, I believe that Rogue, Priest, and Hunter are probably going to be the top 3 classes, not necessarily in that order. But Rogue is still very powerful thanks to the Sinstone Graveyard and gigantic Draka weapons being possible. Priest is going to be the way that strategy gets countered, and Hunter is just going to be the dominant class in the lower ranks because casual players either A, really like to play Hunter, or B, are weak against Hunter strategies. I don't know. I personally didn't like Hunter when I started playing Hearthstone either, so I can definitely relate. But thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel for even more deck guides, video essays, and whatever random bullshit I decide to post out there. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. See you for the next one.